The top of the hour.
It's been nearly 2 weeks and the protesters in Egypt are still calling for the president to leave. One of the main reasons they are angry, money and corruption. Many Egyptians feel the only ones benefiting from the country's wealth are businessmen with ties to the ruling National Democratic Party. How did Egypt become so corrupt, and what can a new government really do about it? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Divya Gopalan. Since the protests began against Mubarak's regime, reports about the wealth of Mubarak, his family and the people close to him have started to emerge. They paint a picture of a state where wealth fuels political power and political power buys wealth. According to some reports, Mubarak himself has an estimated net worth of $40 to $70 billion. Paul Brennan has the details.
Gamal Mubarak's exclusive London address on a street where the houses cost more than $8 million each. As one of the few known examples of the Mubarak family wealth, this property has been the focus of protesters' anger. But this impressive home is undoubtedly just a hint at the enormous wealth that the Mubarak family and their associates have accumulated over 30 years in power. As well as owning numerous prime locations in Egypt, the president is reported to have substantial properties in Manhattan, London and Beverly Hills. But his trusted political allies have also benefited. Opposition groups in Egypt accuse the ruling NDP of operating a cartel when it comes to lucrative business deals. It's alleged the most lucrative contracts are handed out to a select and exclusive group of politically connected businessmen.
You find a lot of businessmen are actually ministers in Mubarak governments. Mohammed Rashid, he's a minister of trade, for example. Others also, they got prominent position in the government. So they control the governments and they control also the business sector.
For evidence of the close links between politics and business in Egypt, look no further than disgraced tycoon Hisham Talat Mustafa. His father's company, the Talat Mustafa Group, built the San Stefano Grand Plaza in Alexandria and major developments in Sharm el-Sheikh. Hisham himself became a billionaire through various construction and property deals. And until his conviction for murder in 2009, Hisham was also a leading figure in Mubarak's National Democratic Party and a member of the Shura Council, Egypt's upper legislative house. And the company's links to Mubarak's National Democratic Party remain strong. TMG's current chairman is Hisham's brother Tarek, and he also happens to be chairman of the Egyptian Parliament's Housing Committee. The development company Palm Hills is another which seems to have benefited from close political allegiance. It has seen extraordinary growth and huge profits in the last 4 years. The chief executive is Yassin Mansour, the brother of a former government minister. Another executive is related to Ahmed Al-Maghrabi, a former government tourism minister. According to the group Transparency International, Egypt ranks a lowly 98th in the world when it comes to tackling domestic public sector corruption. The boardrooms of the country's top companies certainly suggest that, in Egypt at least, it pays to be connected. Paul Brennan, Al Jazeera, London.
Just last week, Egypt's Attorney General issued a travel ban on several ministers and members of the ruling party and froze their bank accounts. The move was seen by many as a concession from the government to try and contain the anger of the people who are riled by the corruption that has plagued the ruling classes. Initial figures made available to authorities investigating their finances showed their assets reaching staggering numbers. Here's a look at what some of the more prominent members of government have managed to amass. The wealth of Ahmed Ez, the former NDP organization secretary, is estimated to be at $3 billion. Ex-Minister of Tourism Zuhair Garana is said to have racked up $2.2 billion. With slightly less than that, the wealth of former Minister of Trade and Industry Rashid Mohammed Rashid is estimated to be at $2 billion, while former Housing Minister Ahmed Al-Maghrabi is believed to have assets of more than $1.8 billion. And former Interior Minister Habib Al-Adli The man who ran the police is estimated to have $1.4 billion. The Cairo Appeals Court has also approved the decision of the Attorney General to reveal the secret accounts of the former officials. Joining us now are our guests in Berlin, Arwa Hassan. She's a senior program coordinator at Transparency International. In Dubai, Ibrahim Hayat, he's an economist and business analyst. And in London, Hassam Abdullah, he's a UK-based Egyptian activist and a member of the Egyptian Association for Change. Let's start with Arwa Hassan. Firstly, can you tell us how widespread is corruption in Egypt?
Well, I think it's safe to say that it is fairly endemic. And we at Transparency International conducted a series of studies, so-called National Integrity System studies, that look at all the institutions that make up a country's integrity system. That means the legislature, the executive, political parties, the private sector, media, and the studies came to the conclusion that there were indeed a lot of loopholes in the Egyptian system, and it's the presence of these loopholes that make corruption possible.
Ibrahim Hayat, if you had to translate that into what's happened with Egypt's economy, which has been growing, how much has corruption affected life of people in Egypt?
Very deeply, basically, because there are increased powers that have been given to the police and to the Ministry of Interior over the institutional system, and with all constitutional rights and censorship extended also. Constitutional rights which have been banned basically under the emergency law that has been in place since 1967, except for 18 months of suspension, which ended in 1980 with the assassination of Sadat. So since then, all the human political rights, social rights, have been confiscated by the regime that is in place. And due to the absence of accountability and transparency, there was no way to stop the cronies of the president and his inner circle, due to this cultural phenomenon in Egypt, to have the president surrounded by a group of families who will be his front man. So there was no way to stop this corruption. And we have reached a point where people, even in the last survey that has been made recently, people are saying that the situation has degraded extremely heavily since in the last 3 years, which means we were in a very degrading slope of corruption in Egypt, and this has reached everybody. People are feeling that they cannot afford. We have 40% of the population, 45%, who are living below the poverty line, which is around $2 a day.
I want to talk about what our two other guests have been saying about the deteriorating quality of life and the lack of transparency there is in Egypt and in the way things are run in Egypt. How much do you think that has led to the protests that we are now seeing on the streets?
Well, it's obviously in the heart of it, because as people getting poorer and poorer and seeing other people getting richer and richer, it creates a massive sense of injustice. You have to add to that, actually, that corruption is not only in the high echelon of power, but it actually filters down at every level. So if you want to, at the end of the day, a civil servant is getting very small salary. So to supplement that, the only way forward will be by having bribery here and there. So you cannot finish any paperwork, official paperwork in Egypt or otherwise, without actually bribing somebody and so on. The whole system is now currently created on bribery and on commissions. And in this picture is continuum. I mean, if you take the example you've just said, that the Interior Minister is having 1.8 billion, and let's say it is exaggerated and he has 800 million or whatever. How the hell a civil servant can make this money? How can, in any shape or form, somebody who is the servant of the people make this kind of money? Now, there are a lot of rumors throughout, I'm not sure about them, but for example, that throughout the police force and other things, everybody in the area pays money to the police to provide protection. That protection lines up the pockets of higher officers, and it keeps going up. And that's the only way these people can line up money throughout. This picture, true or not even, but the way the population feel about it makes them live with massive anger. And that by itself reflects itself in the streets as you can see it. Graduates are graduating and finding no jobs. Despite the fact that we have 5%, growing of GDP and so on, the reality, as it was said, in real